Hey, urban sketchers, hello again. Welcome to another Sunday. Welcome to another USK Talks. And welcome to my couch, connecting your couch, connecting to your couch. How cool is that? I hope one day we can sit down and sketch together and we'll be actually sitting side by side. But for now, we've got USK Talks, and we come to you live. It is 11 p.m. now in Hong Kong. I'm seeing all the people connecting from around the world in comments. And again, as always, it is so heartwarming to see everyone in there. Ooh, the Terry Terrible. Hey, Rob. Hi. Very cool. We have a few people from Genoa today because some of our guests. Very cool. Eileen, hi. From Colombia, we've got Talaski 1. Anne-Marie from Albuquerque, Kathy Raingarland from Berkeley again, Di from Cape Town. Hi, Di. Di, I just saw your post and you were talking about how USK Talks has been taking viewers around on this, on this trip from we've been to Lebanon, we've been around the world really. And I love how this season of USK Talks, I hope you appreciate it, all of you appreciate it too. This focus on reportage has brought so many interesting stories to light, things that only sketchers will really draw, because a lot of the stories that we talk about are not going to be in the news. But it has been fascinating learning about these things from each of you. Today, we have a fascinating show ahead. If you've seen the promos, and I'm sure you have, then you know that we've got two main segments up. First up, we are going to talk to a very unusual sponsor. This is truly a very inspiring thing for me. We're going to talk to someone who was a sketcher, who didn't like a tool, and who decided to take it upon himself to do something about it. And in that segment, we will also talk to Shari. Everyone knows Shari, who's going to talk about this particular tool, this particular pen, Ackerman Pens. So thank you, Ackerman Pens, for sponsoring this segment. And then we will be jumping across the world to Genoa, to Italy, where we will talk to Elisa, who's going to be telling us about what it's like designing the interiors of cruise ships. So I want to ask you, who among you have been on a cruise? Because I have not. I'm just curious, how many of you have been on a cruise? Bonus points if you've sketched on the cruise. I haven't. When I was a kid, I watched The Love Boat. That's all I know. I know I'm dating myself, but I got a feeling that a lot of people in the comments will know The Love Boat. The Love Boat. Soon we'll be making another run. Nope. Nobody's been on a cruise. No cruise. What? Come on. I'm sure. Oh, yes, Susie Quinn has been on a cruise. Elizabeth Alley, you've been on a cruise. Okay, so I'm sure it's going to be a lot of fun to draw on a cruise, but can you imagine, as an urban sketcher, to go behind the scenes and see what it's like to build a cruise ship? Whew, I get the tingles. Anyway, we got to get the show on the road. So first up, I'd like to invite Mr. Charles Ackerman to join us. Hey, Charles. How are you? Coming in from Delaware. Thank you so much for joining us, and thank you for sponsoring this segment. Sure. Your story is absolutely fascinating, and it's something that I think all these sketchers can appreciate. You drew, you decided you could not find a pen you liked, right, and you decided to make it yourself. Right. So please, Charles, tell us how that happened, when that happened, and everybody wants to know.
Okay. Well, I buy a lot of pens and go through a lot of pens like every other sketcher. And Grumbacher brought out a sketch pen, which I liked in the beginning, and I found faults with it. So I wrote them a letter with my comments, thinking there's my comments into the ether. But they replied with a box of 50 redesigned pens according to my specifications. And I thought, well, maybe I have a knack for this. So I dug into more deeply into pens, collected pens, buy them off of eBay, learned all the things that they used to do with pens when pens were more of a sketching tool. They changed somewhere in 100 years ago to be more of a writing tool, watered down the ink, and sketchers, I think, gave up on pens for a long time. They went to other tools. So I thought I would bring pens back to the sketching style, indie ink, thicker paints, things they used to use. Opened up the orifices, use a material that nothing sticks to, so you're not going to plug up your pen. You don't lose your pen if you use India ink. And over a period of years, I built a machine shop and started turning these pens out one by one. And now the numbers are higher.
That's an incredible journey. So remind me again, how long has that been? When did you start inventing and creating?
Inventing pens? About 20 years ago. More like 24 years ago. It took me a number of years to bring out my first superficially workable pen.
Okay. The first prototype.
Yes, the first prototype.
Okay. Wow. Okay. Well, I'm going to pull up the slides because there is plenty for us to dive into. I'm sure everyone wants to see these pens that you're talking about. Just give me a second and we will be on the go. Okay, here we are. There we go. Right. And first up, people, this is Charles Ackerman. That's such and you can find him at Ackerman Pens on Instagram. So let's take a look at some of the samples that you sent us. Also, there is at least one familiar name here. These are samples of artists who actually use your pens. I think lots of people know Don Lowe, and he does some amazing work with the line variability. And this is what I find really exciting about the pen that you've got, that line variability. And we have a demo, people. Hang on. So tell us about the range of pens. It looks like you've got a lot, but what are these?
Okay, that collection is really my museum. It's previous samples. They're not all included in there. I think we've gone to 12 versions, maybe 14 by now. In order to get a very simple pen that works, it can't be complicated. And what you're seeing on the upper right and right side and the top there are the pens that we're currently selling now. It includes a fountain pen and a pump pen, what I call a pump pen. We first brought out the pump pen because that allowed you to press the pump and squeeze out India ink, which has a tendency not to flow very well. That was the signature pen for many years. And then people said that they find they don't use the pump that often, so I just brought out a version that doesn't have the pump. But other than that, they're identical pens. They're made from a material to which nothing sticks. The large capacity reservoir inside the pen there, you can draw all day. The front of the pen with a nib. This is a middle of their version here. We use this wall poster as a sort of a user guide showing the many features that our pens provide. You put in brushes, different feeds.
Okay.
The reservoir on the right.
They all look like really exciting tools. And
this is our Nibmeister. He's a machinist from Germany who has been working with me for about 9 or 10 years. He's a metal specialist, and he tests every pen that he produces. Now, he doesn't produce the pens, that he tests every feed that he makes. This is an example. This is a video of how easily it is to switch nibs in and out. The key with sketchers, of course, is to switch inks, to switch flows, change the flow up, to use different nibs that they like to use. And you can't get much more simple than a press fit.
Right. Yeah. And there's different bits that are interchangeable, so you can.
Each nib has to have its own feed, but some nibs, some feeds will match up to a lot of different nibs. The manga nibs are our primary, our best sellers. We've made this nib here, which is a bronze version of the Zebra nib. It's smoother than the Zebra nib. It skates over the paper. It won't catch. Unfortunately, you don't get quite as fine a line, but you have choices.
Okay. And well, it looks like there's a lot of choice because I mean, just that demo of how fine the lines can get and just seeing some of the work. And of course, right up next, we're going to bring on Shari Blaukopf, all the way from Montreal, is going to join us. And she actually uses these pens. So let's bring her on because she can tell us more. Hello, Shari.
Hello, Rob. How are you? Hi, Charles.
Hi, Shari.
Welcome to the show.
You both.
Good to see you.
I watched The Love Boat too, Rob, just so you know.
Oh, right. That's where I learned. I learned geography from that show. Like Puerto Vallarta. Where was that?
Oh, yeah.
Puerto Vallarta. Anyway, so Shari, so you are a user of the Ackerman pen as well. What is your favorite thing about it?
Well, my favorite pen before this was actually a dip pen. So I love the flexibility of the nib of a dip pen, but you can't take a dip pen out urban sketching really, right? Can't take that ink bottle. That's not very portable. So I've tried over the years many kinds of pens and nothing suited me at all. But around December, Charles sent me a pen. And as soon as I filled it and used it, I said, this is a dip pen that I can, take outside because it responds. I like a flexible nib and it responds to pressure. So I like being able to make a really scratchy thin line that moves into a big fat line. And my style of drawing is kind of wiggly. So that pen really suits me.
I wouldn't call your work wiggly. I mean, that's an interesting word, but still, okay. Let's take a look at some samples. And for those of you, anyone out there in the audience, if you don't know who we're talking to, it's Shari at Shari Sketcher. Amazing work, wonderful person as well. Okay, Shari, take us through what we're looking at here.
Yeah, so that's just a little sample where I was trying to see how fine the pen could be and then how fat the pen could be, the line. And I have the pump version, so I do use what Charles was describing. I press on that little pump just to give a little extra thickness to the line. So that was kind of my first little try on seeing what it was like. It's also very comfortable to hold in the hand. The weight is nice. And so that was my first little thing. And then, of course, my dog, Alice, is always by my side. So she's always like, new tools get experimented with Alice. So we go for a walk and then I draw the dog. And I really liked that you see that outer line, which is very thick, and then being able to make all of those thinner lines. So that was my first kind of experiment. That was when I did yesterday, as these big fat snowflakes were falling. So I used that pen and also a brush pen. I combined it with a brush pen. And you'll see in my little video that there's also a brush pen attachment that goes on the end of the Ackerman Pens, so you can also integrate that in there. Yeah, it's
wow.
I'll talk about that when we get to the video. So that was done from my kitchen window, So the real test for me is taking it out, right? Taking the pen outside. So this was the first time that I actually went car sketching. And I did some experiments, but I filled the pen with platinum ink, which dries pretty quickly and flows really well in this pen. And because it dries quickly, I can immediately put a wash on top. So that for me is the real test, using the pen and then putting watercolor.
Sure.
So it passed the test.
Yeah, and I can see that you've got incredible line versatility. It allows you to work really loosely and freely.
Yeah, that was with I used a brown ink. That's actually a Diatramentis ink, which is a little thinner, but it worked really well in that pen. And I know that Charles is now making new feeds that work with those inks, that work with the thinner inks. So I've tried it with 3 inks, and all worked great. So that was my Portobello Mushroom, and there was another one where I worked on a different kind of paper. I worked on a hot press paper, and this pen is beautiful on the smooth hot press paper because, again, I'm sitting in my car on a really cold day, and you could see that, and that really, really nice to use on smooth paper.
Really nice lines. And I don't know how you bring such warmth into such cold days, but that is your thing. You make snow look so sexy.
Well, because I paint that yellow house. That's how I get the warmth.
That helps, yes. Yeah. No, I've seen just your snowscapes, just black and white, Shari. You don't need to be shy with me. I know it's pretty awesome. Okay, what is the main pen you use? Zip Chips is asking, and which of Ackerman's is your go-to pen? Okay.
So the main pen that I use here is the Manga G with the zebra nib, right, Charles? That's right. That's this one. And so I had some little clementines on my table, and this is a little demo. And when I said my wiggly lines, I'm kind of you'll see when I start to draw the leaves. So it flows really, really well. I mean, this is shot in one take. It's sped up a little bit, but it's just one take. So I'm basically drawing these little clementines, and you'll see as my hand warms up, I start to get a little, the lines get a little looser. So I like to be able to kind of draw the shape and then come back and put the darker parts. That's in the book that I use all the time, which is a watercolor paper. So even on a textured paper, the pen is great. And that's what I mean by the wiggly lines. Those are the kind of things that I like.
Yeah.
And when a nib is not flexible, I can't do that kind of thing.
Right.
So you'll see in a minute, I'm going to attach the little brush attachment, and I have my palette next to me. And what I did was I didn't fill the brush attachment with ink. I filled it with water, so that if I'm on the go and I have my palette and I don't want to carry a big setup, I can just put a little bit of watercolor paper. So that's the little brush that goes on the end of the pen. And I'm just putting a little,
So it's just checking that's sold as a separate attachment that you can add on, Charles?
Yes, it is. It's it gives you what's called a double-ended pen. So you can spin it half, turn in your hand, wash. I use water on my ink drawings, but the color is spectacular. So you can put anything in there, or you can pick it up with the brush. You can also snap it off, and then your pen is more shorter, so you can put it in your pocket, and you don't have to worry about this long pen carrying it around.
Yeah, and you could also, if you used a water-soluble ink, you could just put water in there and just get a little tint or a little value on your drawing instead of
a little dilute, like one drop for 10 water.
Yeah.
Wow. Okay.
Yeah. So that's another way of using it. So it's very easy to use. I'll answer the question about the pens, are they easy to clean? I just pull the nib out and I just rinse it out and I dry it a little and I put it back. But maybe Charles has stuff to add to that.
You can field strip the pen in 30 seconds. That is, you can disassemble it, flush it. You can look right through the pen body. If that hole is clear, you're fine. If not, take a Q-tip or whatever. It's durable. Take a chopstick, unplug it, snap it back together again, and refill it.
Wow. Well, that is pretty incredible, and I'm sure there are lots of people are really excited about the pen. I mean, I'm a digital sketcher, but the fact that you've got a pen that is versatile like this, because I love variable line, but also it looks like your pen has variable line that you can control very well and very organically. Whereas you can get that with a brush pen, but sometimes you do that, you make a splotch that's too large or something like that. So I think I'm going to experiment.
You know what was funny, Rob? I had to do a commercial illustration, and I picked up Procreate, and I was trying to find a tool in Procreate that was like my Ackerman pen.
That will be a separate conversation that I can have with you anytime, Shari. I've found some amazing stuff, but now back to Ackerman Pens.
Yeah.
So Joy is asking, why do you need a flexible nib to do wiggly lines? She does a lot of wiggly trees with a micron. Well, micron is single width, right?
It's single width. So the flexible nib allows pressure. So when I press harder, I get a thicker line, and you can't do that with a micron. Yeah. I can't anyway.
Yeah, and to the question of variable line, I mean, it allows you to work so much quicker. Thicker lines, you suggest more volume, and then you can go really fine with it. I love that.
And even if there's a dense area that you want to fill in, I just press a little bit harder on the pump, and then I get a little bit of ink there that I can kind of just spread out with the nib of the pen. So I don't have to take a thicker pen. Also, I really like that the blackness of that ink. It's so rich and beautiful.
I was going to say the pump is designed that you can press to get a little drop, or you can sit on it and puddle out if someone wanted a large black background.
Right. And sometimes I just, shake it a little, and you also could get a little splatter when you shake, which is nice.
Okay. Does the brush tip attachment have a water reservoir?
It has a reservoir, and you can fill it with water or watercolor or whatever you want.
Okay. Just quickly, what kind of waterproof inks or paints can you use with this? Well, maybe not paint, watercolor inks.
Any.
Whatever.
I even say you can use lacquer and enamel, but you're not going to get a very rich flow. We have feeds for people who like to do China painting, and it's almost an open tube for the very, very viscous. Most artists don't want those kinds of media, but you can use the ink or paint you want to.
Okay. Wow.
I hate to say no limitation, but I'm going to say it and find out where I said wrong there. Yeah.
Charles, what's the hardest part about designing a pen, would you say? I mean, in your 24-year journey, you've gone through so much.
Well, you think about a pen, you know, and they're all the same size. It has to fit into your hand. It has to feel good. It's really a container just holding ink, and through very basic forces, gravity and surface tension, the ink has to travel down through the feed onto the nib, and the nib is the business end of the pen. And it has to leave the kind of line you want. Now, that's up to you, how you put the line down. But you don't want a pen that fails you. You don't want a pen that goops out. But there's no way to change these forces. You can't add a pump in there, well, except for my peristaltic pump. But the pen has to serve you and then wait when you don't want to use it. And to build around those limitations are very difficult. It's surprising how difficult it is. But that's why there's thousands of pens out there, you know. I'm trying to make mine more universal, but the difficulty is using these natural forces of gravity and surface tension to deliver the liquid you want in the manner you want to use it. I'm sorry if that sounds too technical, but that's it.
No, it's a good first round to understand it. So thank you, Charles. All right, I see a lot of questions on the overfeed. What is an overfeed? On the website, there is a choice of overfeed or no overfeed when purchasing a pen. Thank you, Lydia from San Diego. Okay, so, and then also about how the pump works. Okay, Joy and Lydia, just hang on. Let's get Charles and Shari to help us out with these questions. First up, the overfeed. What is an overfeed?
An overfeed is a device that appeared 120 years ago, and it's it's a feed. Most pens have what's called an underfeed, but they remove the word under. So your typical fountain pen has a nib, and then underneath it is a feed. They also have overfeeds, which rise over the nib. And in the days when flexible nibs were more popular, a well-designed overfeed would behave in such a way that when first of all, it stores ink between the feed and the nib, so it's extra reservoir. Secondly, as the nib lifted up, both tines went on either side of the overfeed. Because what happens when you press too hard on a flexible nib is at some point it starts to ladder. You can see that in the drawing of my Nibmeister testing a nib, and it ladders and separates. But the overfeed, by sticking in between the two tines and storing extra ink, prevents that laddering from happening, and you have a much wider latitude of drawing your lines. You get a much wider line for a much longer time. They disappeared. My overfeed is not built into the pen. It's a slip-on overfeed, so it more qualifies as a topside reservoir, but it behaves like an overfeed.
Okay.
And lets you draw wider lines for a longer time.
Okay, that's the best answer. It lets you draw wider lines.
I should have gotten there first. Sorry.
Okay. All right. And then how the pump works. Joy wants to know the difference between this and a fountain pen, and you don't use cartridges with.
This pen comes with its own cartridge. You can also fill the body. It doubles the volume, and it won't leak. But some people like the double wall protection.
So basically, you fill the ink, and the pump just allows you to press out a little more ink.
Once the pen is filled, and then the pump is there. I use it actually as a nice place to put on your knuckle. It's a soft. Yeah. Do you have? I don't have a pump pen.
I have it. So I'm trying to get it on the camera. So the pump the pump is this little green bulb. So as I'm drawing, I have it in my hand, and I don't know if I'll show it, but I just press on that to let out a little more ink. Okay. And it comes out into the underneath the nib, and I get a thicker line with that when I need a little more ink. I just press on that. So it's all sort of part of the same drawing process. It's not like an extra thing that I do. The line gets a little too thin and I want it a little thicker, then I just press on the pump as I'm drawing.
Okay. Well, I can
do the right thing, Charles, but that's how I use it. So
that you did fine. That's exactly how you use it.
Okay, well, thank you both, Charles and Shari. Looks like there are lots of questions about a pen. Maybe what you could do, Charles, is to stick around and after this segment is over, just take a look at the comments and answer some questions.
I'll answer
And
them.
also for anyone else who's got questions about the technical aspects, you can always get Charles at Ackerman Pens on Instagram. Is that right, Charles?
That's right.
Yep. Ask questions, shoot him a message, and also check out the webpage, etc. And you'll find out a lot more information. Fascinating. Thank you so much, Charles and Shari.
Thank you very much.
Thanks.
Let's raise our mugs and yeah, quick one.
Yay.
Oh, awesome. Thank you all. And
Thanks,
we'll
guys.
see you again. Okay. Thanks again. Thanks for being a sponsor of this segment, Charles. And thank you, Shari. Okay. Fascinating, right? I mean, I'm tempted. I'm a digital guy. I'm tempted by this pen. Okay. All right, people. So now we are on to the next segment of the show. I hope you're going to give it up for me. We will be talking about how the interior of a cruise ship is designed. That is fascinating to me. Coming all the way from Genoa. Hello, Elisa. How are you?
Hello, Rob. Hi.
Thank you so much for joining us. And thank you
for hosting me.
Yes, and if I didn't say it before, Elisa, and hello to everyone else who just tuned in to USkTalks. Elisa submitted a proposal when we asked for reportage proposals at the end of season 1, and she designs the interiors of cruise ships. So how can we say no to that? Plus, her sketches are amazing. So first up, let me pull up her hero shot. You can find Elisa at Elisa Just Sketch on Instagram. Go check that out. And let's dive into it. Elisa, tell us a little bit about yourself. How did you start designing the interiors of cruise ships? This is fascinating.
How did I start? It was a chance, as always happens. Just after the degree, I started.
Okay.
Yeah, and the design of a cruise ship is funny, and every time is different because the companies are different, and when you design an area, you have to think what passengers have to do inside. So
right.
if you are doing a design of a show lounge or a restaurant or cabins, every time you have to think about the spaces, but also the materials, the colors, lights.
So you're working in the context of architecture or interior design or industrial design? Which does it fall under?
This is interior design.
Interior. Okay.
So you start with a plan that is completely empty. There is only iron, the structure, and the systems. And,
which is like the sketchbook. And then you show the tail, the insides.
You start with a sketch.
Yes, you start with a sketch.
I always sketch. And you start with this and start talking with the owner about your ideas, and then going deeply into the design phases.
Okay.
So these are sketches that I did during my vacancies.
Oh, okay. Right.
This is marvelous.
And these are some of the other sketches you do. I mean, I can see that you have great technical skill. You capture perspective really well. And once we get to the ship sketches, you'll see that also. And I find, Elisa, that you've got a particular skill with perspective, because I love how you make it really dynamic and really interesting with that. Okay, now let's dive into the shipbuilding thing.
Okay. So these schemes are done just to explain how is done a ship, how is constructed. There are the main phases that are the first one is a small block that is one floor in pieces. So layer by layer, they compose a section, and the section is put close to the other one inside the dry dock. When the ship is closed, they make it floating, and it takes off. It comes out, and they start a new construction.
I think that's the shortest, sweetest explanation of how a ship is built that I have ever heard.
It's as Lego blocks. It's the same.
Oh, okay, like Lego. Okay. All right, so what are we looking at here?
Okay, this is a scheme of the yard, where you can see the places where the pieces are produced. So the first one is where the steel is cut.
Here, right, okay.
After that, they move and they produce the blocks that you see before. And then the blocks are moved by the cranes, the sliding cranes, and put, in this side.
Here.
And when the section is ready, are mounted inside the dry dock, that is number 4. Yes, this is the dry dock. And after that, the ship can goes out and go in the quay. In the quay, the ship is completed, the fittings are completed, and
then you break the champagne, and then off it goes.
Champagne and the first cruise. And in the meanwhile, they work at the quay. Another one is built inside the dry dock. So we have 2 ships contemporarily.
Continuously, yes. Efficiency.
Yes.
Understand. Wow.
So this is the yard. So you can see the 2 ships. That are one on the left, just in front of us.
This one.
Yes, this one. And the other one is that one.
From this perspective, they look like apartment buildings. I mean, how large are these cruise ships that we're talking about? How many passengers?
Oh, wow. Are large, about 40 meters. These long, are long about 270.
270 meters.
Yes, large about 40.
How many passengers? I think a lot of people understand better. Yeah, how many passengers?
3,000. About 3,000.
3,000 passengers. And crew?
The crew are about 1,600, 1,800. It depends on the ship, but more or less.
So about 5,000 people.
Yeah.
That's amazing. I mean,
That's incredible.
A floating city. It's a floating town. And it is a town. I mean, you have movie theater, you got restaurants, you got, places to live, places to work.
You have everything. Gym, spa, tracks, disco, restaurants, all kind of restaurants you want to find.
It's a city. That is amazing. I mean, like I said, it looks like you're building apartment blocks, and I suppose you could take your experience here and build apartment blocks.
And on these ships that are in construction, quite the great number of cabins are with balcony. Ooh, so you have your balcony and you can see the sea. It's fantastic.
Watch the waves go by.
Yeah,
I mean, that sounds like a really nice town to spend time in to me. I love the perspective of this piece, and I can see that you use an iPad for it. And I can also tell from the brushes that you use Procreate. So maybe this would be a good time for me to ask you, like, what scale do you work at? Can you just very quickly show us some of the tools that you use, like your normal brushes and your sketchbook?
This is the 20 by 30 centimeters paper.
Yeah.
Oh, this one is a little bit bigger.
So this is for your watercolors, I assume?
Yes, this is for water. It's a good paper for watercolor. And
brushes.
The brushes.
Tools.
So this one.
Right. Yeah. Okay. So
for the background and skies and everything.
Yeah.
This is for.
And then for the details and the line work.
Yeah. when I use watercolor, I use this.
Okay. All right.
And otherwise, when I draw, I start with thin
Pen.
markers, pens,
Oh,
yes.
yeah.
And after that, I use a bigger one that has a flat
A flatter nib,
nib. Yeah. I don't know if you can see, but
like a chisel tip.
maybe not.
Yeah, a chisel tip. Okay, a lot of people are asking, do you sketch on an iPad? Let's show everybody what iPad you use. Ta-da! Bring yours up. Oh, yes. 12.9-inch iPad Pro with the Magic Keyboard as well. Okay, this is the first time on USkTalks that I've been able to do that. Thank you so much. That was fun. Okay.
It's new, and I saw you use it, and I wanted to try.
Okay, well, I'm glad you found it handy. I love what you're doing with it. Okay, and your watercolor sketches as well. I mean, very, very cool. Technical detail, again, that sense of scale that you get there. So these are all parts of the process of building, I assume.
Yeah,
I mean, this looks like a crane.
The place where they build, yes, with the cranes, they move the pieces and continue the production in the assembling spaces. And what I was interested in was the cranes, the crane that was sliding and moving the pieces.
Sure, I can imagine. I see a question. Frederica is asking, do you start with line first or color? What's your process?
It depends. If I start, if I want to do a watercolor, I don't use the markers. I start with the pencil and then go directly with color. If I want to do a black and white sketch without colors, I use the pens.
Yeah. Okay.
I like use 1, 2 colors, 3, not more.
Yes, I see that you got like really, really good use of limited color as well. So which is is this your quick sketch kit that we're seeing on screen?
Yes, these are the watercolors I have here. So this one.
Okay. Right. Okay. All right. Cool.
This is just to travel. Otherwise, I use tubes if I stay home coloring.
Okay. Okay. So these are more cranes that you've got there. So you were saying, okay,
these are the tower cranes that are close to the dry dock and the quay. These works at the dry dock.
Okay. So you're saying that when you do watercolor, you do pencil line first and then you paint on top.
Yeah.
And if you do black and white, then it's with the lines. Eileen is asking, do you use fountain pens?
I use a fountain pen, yes. I don't have the Ackerman pens. Now I know they exist. I buy some.
Very cool.
Yes, I use the fountain pens, but only for black and white colors, the drawings. So this is the block. This is the block that I told before.
Right.
The first piece. This is the first piece of the ship. So this is when they mount this one, they turn up down because the weldings are more easy and safe if you turn the piece and work on the bottom.
Right. So they've actually flipped. Right. Yeah. Okay. Fascinating. All right. Well, Mika is asking, what do you recommend to tell a story when we sketch subject like boats? What do you recommend to tell a story? Mika, I'm also struggling a little bit to understand your question. Are you talking about what to focus on, or are you talking about tools? Clarify, Mika, and we'll come back to you. Are you talking about tools or how
waiting for the clarification? Yes.
Yes, a little clarification. And in the meantime, let's take a look at more pictures. This one is such a good use of texture and perspective in Procreate. Beautiful piece. But what are we looking at? I mean, there are all these links.
I stuck there for this these ropes and these hooks that were fascinating. Yeah, just
All right.
all laid down, waiting to be used in the right order, so they are ready to be kept.
Okay, then this is a perfect question for us to use to clarify Mika's question about telling the story. What do you focus on when you tell the story? There's so many things I can only imagine in a Mika in a shipyard. There's so many details that pop out at you. It's like being on a construction site. There's so many things, and I assume that you really have to develop what we'd call with urban sketching as an editing eye. So, what do you pick, Elisa, to tell your story? How do you start?
How I start? I start when I see something that hit me, or a detail, or as this drawing. I stopped there because I saw the ropes, and I'm interested in the production phases. So these pieces, the blocks. When I saw the blocks layered on these yellow supports, I said, okay, this is a good subject. Or sometimes I see an interesting perspective. So in this case, the bow of the ship was in front of me, and the whole of the dry dock was 12 meters down, and all the scaffolding all around. And I said, wow, the cranes were dancing up and down. And I said, okay, I stop here and try to do something.
Okay. Well, I can only imagine. I mean, we'd be like, I think if there were a bunch of urban sketches there, we would move like 6 inches at a time because there's so much to see and so much to draw.
Yeah, but I went there lot of times. I went there 4 or 5 times, and then continue going because the construction is going on. So I go to see
at different phases. So do you have to go to like inspect during the construction process and all that as well?
Yeah, no, I'm not in charge of these 2 ships, but usually I go. Okay. And this is interesting because this was the chance to see something that I've never seen before. Because when you go working on board, you are in a hurry. You have to see the problems, to solve problems. And you don't go to see, to sightseeing everywhere. So this time I went inside the dry dock. I've never been inside at the bottom of the dry dock.
Oh, okay.
Yeah. I asked to go there, and they led me inside. And I might say I would like to thank the director of the yard, Mr. Torrente, and Mr. Scarrell also, that who make this reportage possible. They are very kind to let me go in and take these drawings, do these drawings.
Well, I have to thank them on your behalf and on behalf of USkTalks as well. Thank you so much for letting Elisa go in and draw all these things and tell us about it. It's so fascinating to know someone who does this, and to take us behind the scenes. We really appreciate it. Fascinating. Federica is asking, so fascinating to see these spaces where action happens. Is it usually noisy there?
Of course it's noisy. It's noisy and dangerous.
Yes, I can imagine. Okay. Well,
so
this is from the dry dock, looking up.
Yeah, this is the bow, looking up, the bow of the ship. And the other picture, the picture before, you can see this is the bottom of the ship. It is huge. It is incredible to be.
Yeah, it is huge. And just this little cart gives us a sense of scale, like how big that ship is. I mean, just think about it.
The yellow box on the right is about 1.50 meters.
Okay. Yeah. Well, it's a home for 5,000 people, so it's huge.
Yes.
Oh, and this is a sketch from the bottom of the dry dock.
Yes, yes, yes. This
Wow.
is the aft part.
Mhm.
And on my head will be installed the propellers, the propellers. So I will go there again to sketch
The
the other
propelling.
parts. Yeah.
Wow. Yeah, I think that would
And,
be so cool to capture.
oh yeah, yeah. And on the right, you can see the blocks that are put
Uh,
to keep
to
the keel of the yes the
to keep it level.
yeah no the ship is
Oh, to
laid
support
down
the ship.
of this yeah on
Yeah.
of these blocks,
Okay. To support everything.
yeah, to support it.
Okay. Eleonora is asking, do you sketch everything on site or do you also take pictures to finish later in case they kick you out? Yeah, we always get kicked out.
Uh, okay, the sketch is completed home. This one I completed. I went out after a while, and I gave the color home because would be too long to
Right.
finish complete inside.
So lying in structure on site and then some color at home.
Yes, yes. The watercolor is done home.
Okay. Somebody, Fernando is asking, how do you cope with the noise? And are people curious when you're drawing there? I can only imagine. So,
Okay, this is the end of the dry dock.
mhm.
This piece is called with a double word. This is baccaporta in Italian. That is boat door in English. It
Okay.
means that when they have to leave the water, get inside, the
Mhm.
ship can start floating.
Right.
And this piece starts floating too. So when the dry dock is dry, it's stuck in this
Mm,
position. When the water gets inside, it starts floating with the ship. Yes,
right.
so it can be moved and the
Mhm.
ship goes out.
I have to say, Elisa, I so appreciate these little drawings.
Yeah.
And I think this is like just a great lesson in how to tell a story in just very, very few lines. I mean, if I can't read Italian, I look at this sketch and I look at these little thumbnails and I understand what this is drawing
This is
about.
the meaning of
So
the
excellent,
Baccaporta, yes.
excellent reportage. And also to go back to the questions, like Mika was asking, do you have people who are very curious and when you're drawing this, they stop you and like, what are you doing? Yeah. Do you get a lot of questions when you're drawing on site here like this?
Yeah. Sometimes it happens that the workers come and say, "What are you drawing?"
Hmm.
There are lots of curious people.
Yeah, I can only imagine. And also, I mean, it's a closed off site. It's not open to the public, so they must be very curious that you're actually there and drawing. Yeah. In the comments, Talaski1, I know you're asking for Elisa's Instagram handle. It's at Elisa Just Sketch. We will put that up again at the end of the show, so stick around for that. Going on, what is this?
This is the ship at the quake. It was quite Christmas, so we had our Christmas tree.
It's a Christmas tree. Okay, it looks like a game. Also, you throw things through those hoops for fun.
So the next drawings are
Mm.
of the floating ship at the quake.
Oh,
So
okay.
this drawing is done. I was there. I saw these ropes and the bow of this ship that is so particular because it's vertical, completely vertical. So this sketch was I had to do it, and
Yeah.
this is done with
iPad.
the pens, and I completed with the iPad.
Okay. Very nicely done. This is beautiful.
Okay, this is on board. This is an open area where they are building a grill point. And people can take a snack and eat something when the ship will be.
Oh, okay.
And
What?
you can see all the cabins that are with their balconies. Are all cabins, all these 1, 2, 3, 4, 6, 7 decks.
Okay. I'm actually fascinated by this, what you've labeled here, scaffolding for the upper deck. I mean, it's all fanned out. Why is it all fanned out?
I don't know actually what is over these scaffoldings. I have to go to see what happens outside.
Well, good. Then we can find out more things about how cruise ships are built. I'm just curious because it reminds me of what I see in Hong Kong, because they use bamboo for scaffolding, and sometimes when you look up, it's like a bamboo fan. That reminds me very much of that, which is why I'm asking. Okay. What was the objective of this reportage? The Terry Terrible asks, a personal initiative or a sort of study for some specific purpose? Okay.
I started with the call of human sketchers. The idea was this, but in the meanwhile, I was working. My idea is to go ahead and try to do a complete reportage with the interior story of the ship. This is an interior of a discotheque. This is a double-deck discotheque.
The bones of a cruise ship disco. How many times can you say that you have seen that?
You can see the lights that are wrapped, all the lights on the ceiling. And they were doing the brakes test for the stage. So on the right, there are all these containers that are full of water to have the right heavy enough to start and test the brakes. Yes.
Test the brakes.
Yeah, the brakes of the stage, because the stage can raise up.
Yes, because that's right. The platforms go up and down, right? Okay. Yeah. I mean, of course, your disco has to have platforms that go up and down.
Of course. Dancing.
Yes. Jackie Leonard is asking, were you not tempted to use more color, or just sometimes line is more important?
I like black and white sketches, but I use also colors. Yeah. Not too many colors each time.
I think you balance limited color palette with the black and white and all that really, really well. Very, very effectively done. Excellent.
Thank you. Oh, this is the bow of the ship. Something similar to the other sketch, black and white sketch, but here I draw the system, the hooks, the hanging system that is used to keep the ship stuck to the quay.
To anchor it and stabilize it, I assume, because it's so big. Okay. Fernando is asking, do you use a headset or something like ear protection when you're on site?
Of course. Shoes, helmets, and everything you need to use.
Yeah, okay. Well, yeah, ear protection would be standard. Does that answer your question, Fernando? Yes, it is.
Okay. Of course, since I stay in a place for 30 minutes about, I have to be sure that this place is safe. Otherwise, I couldn't stay so long.
I can only imagine. And Ilaria is asking, do you also make rendering perspectives? Like rendered perspectives of the ship, I assume.
We do rendering of the interiors, yes.
Mm-hmm. Okay, yeah. Well, that's useful. So what are we looking at here with these giant bolts?
Sorry?
What are we looking here in this picture with the giant bolts? These tethers, like what's in this picture? What are these big things?
These are the same systems of the sketch before. These are for the anchorage.
Oh, okay. So this
The
holds the,
joints between two different ropes. The
so
junction.
this part,
Yeah, yeah.
this part. I see. Okay. So, all right. Alvin is asking, how long do you take to make the whole reportage story and all the drawings? Good question, Alvin.
Well, I started in December, and it took about 2 months, but I'm continuing going in the yard, so it's not completed.
Yes, there is more to go, I'm sure. It's not going to be done until you draw the champagne breaking on the bow. We're waiting for that one.
Yeah. Now I'm waiting for some important step, that is the wheelhouse mounting. That is, the wheelhouse is where the captain stays, no? And
Oh,
they
okay.
have to move this big piece and put on the ship.
Okay.
And also the propellers. I want to see the Azipod.
Okay, I'm going to pull up this sketch again, and I want to ask you, because you're very good at conveying scale. So, what would your advice be for sketchers who are trying to capture that sense of scale in a drawing?
I think the perspective is very important. Sometimes you can make it more extreme, using a different angle makes the drawing different. Sometimes the light, the shadows are important. You can understand the forms with lights and shadows. The scale can be done with details. With some detail, you can understand what is your subject.
Yeah, how big and how small. Okay.
Yes.
Okay, that's incredible. And you also have a lot of skill in editing out. Like there's so much detail around when you see what would be advice, some advice that you would give sketchers to learn how to just focus on the important things so that they don't draw everything because they can't draw everything. There's not enough. Our lifetimes are not long enough for that. So
Yes.
how do you decide to just focus?
Yeah, it's not easy to focus on a subject, because when you are there, you would draw anything you see. So the focus is very important, and sometimes you put too many details. Or sometimes you don't draw enough. So it happens that I walk, I get closer, I watch better, I see what it is, and come back to continue the drawing. It happens. It's not easy to stop when you you put
I
enough
understand.
details. In some drawing that you shown before, I started with the drawing that you saw, that is done with the iPad, with the perspective a little bit.
This one.
This one, yes. I started with the shelter on the left. I wanted to draw this one. And when I did this one, I said, no, it's not enough. I want to show where the cranes go. And
Okay.
after that, I said, okay, no, but the piece is on the right where the dry dock is. So I continued the drawing.
I totally understand. And I love panoramas. So this one really, really speaks to me.
Sometimes you can't stop it.
Yes. Well, Mario, let's see, what is it? Mario had a good question just now. He wants to know how you deal with the scale of the ship and the size of your sketchbook. Do you feel like you need bigger sheets of paper? How do you fit everything in?
It
How do you
happens that when I started drawing, I find the paper not big enough. It happens.
So do you plan everything beforehand? I mean, like with an iPad, you have flexibility. You
Yeah,
draw
with
that.
iPad,
You can,
yes, you can do whatever you want. With the paper, I started with the biggest subject, and then I go into the details. So the cranes were the tallest, and I started with these shapes, and then I draw the other lines. The biggest is the
so
most.
working big to small, big
Yeah,
shape and details, big shapes, details.
yeah.
Okay, very good tips. Excellent tips. Okay, we're gonna deal with the perspective thing because that is fascinating, and that very interestingly brings us to our challenge of the week. Okay, so tell the people what you want them to do.
Okay, let's try with this extreme perspective. Yes, it's. I think it's interesting to get into perspective rules, but avoiding to stop in the first steps. Mm,
Huh? I like it.
Usually we use the two vanishing points on sides and forget to use the third one on top. And sometimes it helps to give more to emphasize the proportion of your subject. So if you have a tall subject, I think you can't avoid to use the the zenith the zenith vanishing point. So in this drawing, you can see the two construction that are typical with the two vanishing points on sides, and the upper one and the one at bottom. So if you look up, you have one vanishing point at top, and if you look down, you have the vanishing point at bottom.
Right,
But
okay.
it's not enough because if you want to emphasize it, you and it happens when you get closer to the subject. The lines seems curved, are not straight. So you can, if you see the line one is the perspective that goes that you have when you look up. The line two is when you look down from top to bottom.
Mhm.
But you have two options. The A is with straight lines that are is the construction that we use normally. But
Right.
you can also emphasize it with curved lines.
Yeah. Yeah. That
And
adds.
the light help you. If you go in the image before, you see the difference in the shadows.
The one before. Oh, this one.
Yes, thank
Yeah.
you. On the upper, you have the shadow that is flat. You have a flat surface here. In the lower part, you have the shadow that is curved.
Mhm. Ah,
So
yes.
the light makes a difference.
Yeah, and I love the points that you're giving us. I mean, for anybody who's like trying to scramble to make notes or something, just watch the replay. You have time. Watch the replay, take a screenshot, and learn from it. These, I mean, the demonstrations, the explanations are excellent. I would study this in great detail, take a good look, and here's another sketch that will offer you a little bit of inspiration. Push yourselves as you push your extreme perspectives.
Yeah, this is a master. This is Escher on the left that did incredible perspectives with crossing two different points. So you can see the same building watching up and watching down. On the left is incredible.
Yeah, that's mind-blowing. I mean, I have to try that. I just have to find an interesting building to draw.
And if you can see, all lines are curved, are not straight. And the trick is this one.
Wow.
On the right is one that I did that looks down from a vault, a hole in a vault. I was looking down.
So this is like your window, your view. Is that it? Is that what?
This is the window shape. The window shape.
Okay.
And I was looking down, so I saw the big chandelier from top, and there was chairs for a conference or something like this. So you have the vanishing point at Nadir at the bottom.
Okay, fantastic. So interesting. Okay, well. Thank you.
What it would be nice to do is draw something in if you can go out, is better. But you can also do it in your home, drawing something laid down on the floor and look up your bookshelf or something, and try to use or a straight line, or if you are brave enough also, because fish eye view. Fish eye.
That's very exciting. I love doing that. I love the idea of pushing our boundaries. So for all those of you who are going to take this up, hashtag USkTalks challenge, tag Elisa as well so that she can see what you've done. And that will be incredibly fascinating. I'm going to really look for this. I'm looking for something to draw as well. Okay, so very cool. Thank you so much, Elisa. Wow. This has been such a fascinating educational talk. Thank you for thinking of bringing us into your workspace like this and sharing with us this whole process. It's been really, really cool.
Thank you.
Yeah, and I can see that the people in the audience also had such a great time. Okay. I mean, I look forward to seeing your sketches on the propeller and the captain's, what do you call it? The captain's cabin. Is that right?
The wheelhouse. But it's not the cabin. It's not the cabin.
That's the ship. Yeah. The head of the ship, really. That's where all the control, the command center.
Yes, everything. The head of the ship.
Okay. Check out Elisa's Instagram for when that happens, whenever that happens. I'm sure everybody's going to be looking forward to that. Okay. Well, thank you, Elisa. It's been such a fascinating episode with you. Thank you for sharing that with us. Oh, look at our matching black and whites. Okay. Yes. Okay. Cheers. And I look forward to actually drawing with you one day and meeting you in person, Elisa. Thank you again for sharing.
Thank you, Rob.
Okay. Wow. And that, ladies and gentlemen, boys and girls, and everyone else who's tuning in, I hope you enjoyed this episode. I certainly did. I learned so much. It has been fascinating. We've talked to a sketcher who developed his own pen. How many people actually do that? Like, oh, this brush is not working for me. I'm going to make one. And a brush is one thing, but a pen, I mean, there's so many little things that go into that. So thank you again, Charles, for sponsoring that segment and sharing all that with us. I mean, pens are something that every sketcher holds really, really dear. Even me, digital guy, like my pen, the thing that I hold and draw with is very, very important. So thank you again. Thank you, Shari, for sharing your work with us. I'm just going to pull up. And of course, Elisa, for sharing with us all that wonderful reportage. For those of you who are asking for the Instagram tags for everyone, that's Charles at Ackerman Pens, Shari at Shari Sketcher, and Elisa Just Sketch, all on Instagram. Okay, ladies and gentlemen, urban sketchers around the world, thank you again for tuning in. Thank you for sharing your Sunday with me. It is now just past midnight. My week is starting. I wish you an amazing week ahead. Remember to set your reminders to tune into the next show. Remember to to hashtag and tag our guests if you take up the challenge. Share with us your stories, your Instagram stories, and whatever posts as well. We always love seeing what you do. Stay safe, keep sketching, stay healthy, people, and we will see you next week.